Hey everybody, it's Silver Seeker, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the true value of silver and gold. Now, I'm not talking about spot price. We're not going to be talking about what I think it should be trading for in the market today. Of course, spot goes up and down every single day, hopefully up and not down, and eventually it will just go up. But that is for another video. What we are talking about today is the true intrinsic or inherent value of silver. The reason that having silver as a way of investment is a fantastic idea, keeping physical silver in your stack, and the reason that I think that is just one of the most important things that anyone can do to protect their wealth against inflation as a store of their wealth as well. So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go into things like the gold and silver standard and other stuff like that. So if you want to get my thoughts on this very important subject, make sure you watch this video. And additionally, if you want to support this channel, the most important thing you can do is subscribe, click the bell for all future notifications, and of course share this with all of your friends on social media. All right, let's get into it. Okay guys, well, talking about silver, the first thing I want to get into is, of course, silver has been historically for over 6,000 years used as a form of currency. In fact, like I said, Coinage Act of 1792 actually based our dollar off of silver, not on gold, all the way back then, and it was used throughout the United States all the way again up until 1971. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we used to have silver certificates, gold certificates that you used to be able to walk into a bank and you would be able to exchange those for a silver dollar, or if you had a $5 silver certificate, you could get $5 silver dollars. If you had like a $20 gold note, you could get a $20 gold piece, or a $10 gold note, $10 gold piece. You get the point. Our money was actually backed by something. It was backed by a commodity that was finite, that there's not an infinite amount of. And unfortunately, that is not the situation with the case today. Today, what we use is fiat currency, which is essentially a government currency that is backed by nothing other than the promise of the government that it has value, that is usable, or it is tender. It's goods and tender for all, like debts, public and private, as it says on the note. And our government basically gives it a value like that. Now, of course, people can value it for whatever they want. I could walk into, let's say I walk into a convenience store and I want to pick up a drink for $1. Well, the convenience store across the street may not believe in the dollar very much, and they're like, well, for you to get this drink from us, it's $5. And of course, that's obviously an unrealistic scenario, because you of course have capitalism and you have people competing against each other, and why would anyone buy the $5 drink when they could buy the $1 drink? But the point is that the dollar is valued based on what people think its value is, and that is it. It doesn't have anything behind it telling it that it is worth money. In fact, it's the opposite. Not only does the US dollar not have anything behind it, but it has not only nothing of physical value behind it, but it also has all of this debt. In fact, the US is $27 trillion in debt right now, and that just goes to show you that our dollar could at any point be worth way less today or tomorrow than it is today. And to me, that is really scary, because essentially going off of the gold and silver standard gave the US government the basically no responsibility or accountability for the way that they spend the currency, because they can essentially just create more of it. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, I do understand how money works. Money does have value because the labor that is required to create said money. So, a laborer works in a field for, whatever, let's say he owns a farm and he puts thousands of hours into his farm every single year. That labor gets in turn turned into money, and that creates the value of the money. But when you have a government that can also say, well, I'm just going to create more of it, that is something to be worried about. And that is why, again, the US is in so much debt, because they can create as much of this money as they want, but it has to be backed by something, and it's not. So if you were to look over, and we'll take a look at this, we're actually going to look at the US debt clock. We're sitting at $27 trillion in debt. We'll go ahead and zoom in here. As you can see, the US national debt right now is $27,133 billion in debt. That is more money than you guys, it doesn't even click in your brain. If you try and figure out what kind of money that is, it would blow your mind because you just can't wrap your head around it. And if you look at the debt per citizen, $82,091. The debt per taxpayer, so the difference between obviously citizen and taxpayer is you have low income and you have children that don't actually pay any taxes. So if you look at the debt per taxpayer, so every single taxpayer, $217,000. Now I don't know about you, but that's way more money than I currently make every year. It's way more. It's not even close. And so that's scary. Like I would never be able to pay that in my lifetime, likely, being a taxpayer. So, wow, that is something really to be worried about. And if you look at the federal spending, the official federal spending is $6.6 trillion this year. And we can scroll over and we'll take a look at this. Look at the U.S. federal tax revenue is $3.4 trillion, spending 6.6. 3.4 trillion, spending 6.6. In other words, the point is that the government can choose to spend as much money as they want because they can basically create out of thin air. The U.S. Mint go burr, the paper machines go burr. They just create as much of it as they want, and they can spend as much of it as they want. And at this point, they don't even have to physically create the dollar bills because they can just now go into a computer and add a zero to a line, essentially. And the problem with this system is that for decades, ever since we've been off the gold and silver standard, all the way back in 1971, when we were taken off the gold standard permanently, people have just accepted it. No one's really protested it. No, not very many people have questioned it. As long as they can get their money and then spend it on what they want to spend it on, they don't worry about it. But if you look around the world, so many countries are having, currency debasement where the value of their currency is just basically imploding. We can take a look at Zimbabwe, 1986 or so. Don't quote me on exact dates and don't quote me on exact dollars here, but essentially mid 80s Zimbabwe, it was $1.50 Zimbabwe money would get you like $1 US. That was the trade, US dollar to Zimbabwe dollar. And then you fast forward to the 2006 and they were creating $100 trillion bills that were basically good enough for about a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread if you were lucky. So in this situation, and this is where I get into silver, this is where I think storing stuff like this is a role of Silver Eagles, becomes very, very important. So let's say in 1986, you lived in Zimbabwe, you had a little bit of money and you shoved it under your mattress to store it for a rainy day. And then you go through hyperinflation and all of a sudden, you're seeing hundreds of thousands of % of inflation every single day. It essentially is what happened, which is very scary to think about. If all of a sudden your money's not worth anything, if you put $1,000 under your mattress and $100 trillion bill is going to buy you a loaf of bread, what's your $1,000 going to get you? But at the same time, if in 1986 that person took and spent their money on a commodity like gold or silver, a finite commodity that is traded on the world market, that's always been used as money, that has always been stored or used as a way to store wealth, they would have been fine because now your 1 ounce of silver that you paid in 1986 $5 for would now be worth $500 trillion. Now, granted, $100 trillion is only going to buy you a loaf of bread or some milk, but now that you can turn your silver in for 500 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, you can still get your loaves of bread. You can still get your gallons of milk. And granted, in the United States, the chance of it happening to this extreme is pretty slim. It can still happen. The value of our currency goes up and down all the time. In fact, our silver trades, it goes up and down based on how strong the United States dollar is. If the United States dollar is showing really strong, then you will see the price of silver drop inherently, even without the price of silver actually dropping on a world market. It will just go down on the US dollar. So if today our dollar is worth $1 and tomorrow our dollar is worth $1.50, then the silver is going to lose 33%. But on the other hand, if today our dollar is worth $1 and tomorrow our dollar is worth 50 cents, silver doubles in price without actually changing in price from trading. So, even though the silver didn't go up from trading on a market or because people thought it was worth more, it just becomes worth more because our dollar is now worth less. Now, if we look let's go to the silver standard a little bit. So when we were on the silver standard again, Coinajak 1792, the United States Mint basically based the value of $1 on silver. If you go back and look at that, back then our $1 bill had to have $1's worth of silver to back it. Take a look at this now. So if the US Mint were to somehow be able to back every one of our dollars with silver just this year, just 2020. I'm not talking about all the other dollars that are already out there. Let's just say that they were to back every single dollar that they have created this year with silver, an ounce of silver. Let's scroll over on the US debt clock. Let's go down and look at the dollar to silver ratio, $4,241 per ounce. And what this means, guys, is they have produced 1 ounce of silver for every $4,241 that have been produced. And we'll go ahead and zoom out so you can read this straight off of US debt clock. As you can see right at the top, the year-over-year increase in the US M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver. Keep in mind, world production, not US production. So again, the year-over-year increase in the US M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver in ounces. So in other words, $4,241 per ounce if we were to cover every single dollar that has been created out of thin air out of the US Mint this year. So let's look at it from another perspective. Let's look at it from an industrial perspective. Let's say that we go into this big green energy push. Let's say government starts forcing everyone to go into green energy and, everyone has to get solar panels. Or let's just say that, they don't force it, but they create huge incentives for homeowners, for example, to start using solar panels. Now you're going to see this massive demand increase for things like solar panels and other green energy devices that use silver. And that is going to create even more industrial demand than we already have. So as you know, silver is already a huge, huge industrial metal. I think over 40%, if I remember correctly, is investment, but over 50 or 60% or something in there. I don't have the exact percentages in front of me. And of course, they're probably not perfect, even if I got them offline anyway. But the point is the majority of silver is used in industry if I'm correct. Again, correct me down below if I'm wrong, but I know it's a huge number. Whether or not it's the majority or not, my point is that if you could see it go up even more. So eventually you're going to have industry, you're going to have your solar panel makers and other things like that. They're going to be obviously wanting to get more silver because they have to increase or ramp up the amount of solar panels that they're creating, which is going to in turn cause them to buy tons of more silver off the futures market, which is going to in turn cause silver prices to go up. So whenever there's a huge increase in industrial demand, and of course investors are going to want to get into silver because of its price increase. You know what happens when silver starts going up really quick? Everyone wants to hop on board. They have FOMO, or fear of missing out. Of course, you're going to see a huge increase in silver just off of that, and I think that is something that can definitely happen. But additionally, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that we could see a huge debasement of our currency, and our currency could be worth way less than it is today. I'm not saying it's going to go through Zimbabwe style inflation, but it could happen. You could see silver hit $100 or $200 an ounce. And speaking of $100 or $200 an ounce silver, I tell you what, actually this video is getting too long, so we're going to save that for another video. But I'm going to talk to you about why I wouldn't really be interested in seeing even $100 or $200 an ounce silver as well in a future video. So stick with me on that. But my point is I think silver is absolutely something that should be invested in today, and that's why I stack as much silver as possible. So let me know what you think about my thoughts on this today, and leave a comment down below or whatever. Also, again, I appreciate you watching the video. If you have any questions, again, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I do want to give a huge shout out to all of my awesome channel members that are scrolling on the right hand of the screen right now, including tonight's featured Palladium member. Thank you so very much for your support. Guys, don't forget to subscribe before you go. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.